This is a fictional romantic story created for entertainment purposes only. One kiss at a wedding changed everything. I thought he was just a handsome stranger. Turns out, he was my new boss, a mafia boss. And that kiss? It was about to make my first day at work very, very complicated. Before we dive in, I need your help to reach 200 likes on this video. Hit that like button now, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from. Now let me tell you how one moment of recklessness led to the most intense relationship of my life. The wedding was suffocating me. Not the actual ceremony, that had been beautiful in a distant, clinical way. But this reception, pure torture. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto marble floors, reflecting off champagne flutes and designer gowns. Everyone here had an agenda, a connection to protect, a deal to close. I could feel the weight of falseness pressing down on the room like humid summer air. I hadn't wanted to come. My friend Claire had begged, insisted she needed moral support at her cousin's wedding. But Claire disappeared 20 minutes ago with some groomsmen, leaving me stranded in this sea of Italian silk suits and practiced smiles. So I did what I always do at these things. I found the bar and claimed a quiet corner. The bartender slid me a gin and tonic without asking. I must have looked like I needed it. The glass was cool against my palm, condensation dripping down my fingers as I watched the crowd swirl and spin on the dance floor, a symphony of laughter that never quite reached anyone's eyes. I should leave. Call an Uber, slip out before anyone noticed. My black dress was elegant enough that I'd blended in, but I didn't belong here. These people lived in a world I only observed from the outside. That's when I felt it. The shift in the air, the weight of someone's attention. I turned my head slightly, just enough to see him in my peripheral vision. He was impossible to miss. Tall, easily 6'3", with the kind of build that made expensive suits look like they were designed specifically for him. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, the hint of ink crawling up from his collar onto his neck. Dark hair swept back, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes so intense they felt like a physical touch even from across the room. He was staring at me, not the casual glance of someone scanning a crowd. A deliberate, focused stare that made my pulse quicken. I should have looked away. Should have turned back to my drink and pretended I hadn't noticed. Instead, I held his gaze. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or recognition of a challenge. He moved through the crowd like water parting around a stone. People stepped aside without seeming to realize they were doing it. Within seconds, he was standing beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle with notes of cedar and something darker. "You're hiding," he said. His voice was deep, textured with an accent that suggested Italian roots but years of American polish. "Observing," I corrected, taking a sip of my drink to steady myself. Same thing. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, more like the memory of one. "You don't want to be here. Does anyone?" That got a real smile, brief but genuine. Fair point. He signaled the bartender, ordered a whiskey neat. His hands were large, scarred across the knuckles. Working hands, despite the $10,000 suit. When the drink arrived, he didn't immediately take it. Just stood there, studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. "Leonardo," he said finally. "Emily." I didn't offer my last name. Somehow it felt safer that way. "You're not Italian," he observed. "Neither are half the people here." "True, but they're pretending to be. You're not pretending to be anything." I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or an observation. Before I could decide, someone announced a toast to the bride and groom. The crowd pressed forward, glasses raised, bodies pushing together in that way crowds do at weddings, Leonardo and I were suddenly much closer. I could see the fine lines at the corners of his eyes, the small scar cutting through his left eyebrow. His chest was almost touching mine, the heat of him radiating through the thin fabric of my dress. "This is a terrible idea," I said quietly. "What is?" "Whatever you're thinking." His hand came up, cupping my jaw with surprising gentleness. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I felt that touch everywhere, like electricity running under my skin. "I'm thinking a lot of things, Emily. Which one worries you?" I should have stepped back. Should have made some excuse and walked away. Instead, I tilted my face up toward his. "All of them." He smiled then, a real smile that transformed his face from dangerously handsome to absolutely devastating. And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't tentative. It was claim and question and demand all at once. His mouth was firm against mine, tasting of whiskey and something uniquely him. One hand stayed on my face, the other sliding to the small of my back, pulling me closer until there was no space left between us. I kissed him back. God help me. I kissed him back like I was drowning and he was air. My hands found his chest, feeling muscle and heat beneath expensive fabric. The world narrowed to just this: his mouth, his hands, the rapid beat of my heart against his. When we finally broke apart, I was breathing hard. So was he. "That was reckless," I managed to say. "I'm usually worse." His thumb traced my bottom lip, swollen from his kiss. "Come with me." "Where?" "Anywhere but here." For a moment I considered it, really considered it. The smart part of my brain was screaming warnings, but the rest of me was drowning in those dark eyes and the lingering taste of him on my lips. "I can't," I said, and watched something flicker across his face. Disappointment, maybe, or respect. Can't or won't. Does it matter? He studied me for a long moment, then released me, though I could tell it cost him something to do it. "Maybe not tonight, but this isn't finished, Emily. It has to be. We'll see." He stepped back, giving me space to breathe, to think. Someone called his name from across the room, an older man in a suit even more expensive than Leonardo's. He glanced that way, jaw tightening, then back to me. "I have to go. Business." He said the word like it tasted bad. "But I'll find you again. You don't know anything about me. I know enough." He leaned in close, lips brushing my ear. "I know those blue eyes are going to haunt me. I know that kiss is going to ruin me for anyone else. And I know you felt exactly what I did." Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd, leaving me shaking and confused and more alive than I'd felt in years. I left the wedding 20 minutes later, but I couldn't stop thinking about him, about the kiss, about the way he'd looked at me like I was the only real thing in a room full of beautiful illusions. It was just a kiss, I told myself in the Uber home. Just one impulsive, reckless, absolutely unforgettable kiss with a stranger whose last name I didn't even know. It didn't mean anything. It couldn't mean anything. I had a new job starting Monday, a fresh start at Vitale Enterprises, one of the most prestigious companies in New York. I needed to focus on that, not on dark eyes and dangerous smiles. But that night, I dreamed of him. Of whiskey-flavored kisses and hands that held me like I was something precious and breakable and worth keeping. I told myself I'd forget him by morning. I was wrong. Monday morning arrived with the kind of confidence only a new beginning can bring. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, smoothing down my navy blazer and checking my reflection one final time. Professional. Polished. Ready. My hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, minimal makeup highlighting my eyes, those unusual blue eyes that always drew comments. My mother's gift, she used to say. a legacy from some distant ancestor that skipped generations. Today was important. Today, I stopped being just another face in the corporate crowd and became Emily Foster, senior analyst at Vitale Enterprises. I'd worked hard for this position. Late nights, extra certifications, networking events where I smiled until my face hurt. This was my moment. Nothing was going to distract me. Not even the memory of a kiss that still made my lips tingle 3 days later. I shook my head, banishing the thought. That was over. A beautiful, reckless moment that existed outside real life. Leonardo, whoever he was, belonged to that glittering wedding world of champagne and impulse. This was my world. Spreadsheets and strategy meetings and proving I deserved to be here. The Vitale building rose like a steel and glass monument in Midtown Manhattan. 47 floors of corporate power, with the company logo gleaming at the top. I'd Googled the building obsessively over the weekend, memorizing every detail. The lobby was exactly as the photos showed, all white marble and modern art, with a security desk that looked more like a spaceship control center. I gave my name to the guard, received my temporary badge, and headed for the elevator bank. My heart was racing, but it was good nerves, excited nerves. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was smooth and silent. When the doors opened, I stepped into a reception area that screamed money and taste. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the Manhattan skyline. The furniture was Italian leather and chrome. Fresh flowers, probably replaced daily, sat in crystal vases on every surface. You must be Emily Foster. I turned to find a woman in her 50s, elegant in a gray suit, smiling warmly at me. I'm Margaret, Mr. Vitale's executive assistant. Welcome to Vitale Enterprises. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Mr. Vitale is running a few minutes behind, but he wanted to meet with you personally before you settle in. Can I get you coffee? Water? Coffee would be great. Thank you. She led me to a conference room that was all windows and understated luxury. The coffee she brought was perfect, rich and dark in a delicate china cup. I sat, going over my notes one more time, rehearsing the professional introduction I'd practiced in my mirror. 10 minutes passed, then 15. I didn't mind. Important people ran late. It came with the territory. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Confident, measured footsteps. The door opened, and my entire world tilted on its axis. Leonardo stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame, staring at me with an expression that mirrored exactly what I was feeling. Complete and utter shock. He was different than he'd been at the wedding. Same impossible build, same devastatingly handsome face, but now in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His hair was perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven. He looked every inch the corporate titan. But those eyes, those same dark, intense eyes that had looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Time stopped. Or maybe my heart did. I couldn't tell which. You, he said finally, his voice rough. I stood on shaking legs, trying to find words that made sense. Mr. Vitale? His jaw clenched. I watched him visibly gathering control, that professional mask sliding into place. But his hands. I noticed those hands curled into fists at his sides. Miss Foster. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with a quiet click that sounded final. This is unexpected. Unexpected. What an inadequate word for the complete disaster unfolding in front of me. I didn't know, I said quickly. At the wedding. I had no idea who you were. Neither did I. He moved to the windows, putting distance between us. Smart. Because if he came any closer, I didn't trust myself not to do something incredibly stupid. Your resume said Emily Foster. The connection didn't register. Because I didn't tell you my last name. No, you didn't. He turned back to face me, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Heat and frustration and something darker, more complicated. This is a problem. It doesn't have to be. I forced my voice to stay steady, professional. What happened at the wedding was a mistake, an anomaly. It won't affect my work here. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You actually believe that? I have to. Emily. The way he said my name, rough and low, sent shivers down my spine. Do you have any idea who I am? What I do? You're the CEO of Vitale Enterprises, one of the most successful commercial real estate development companies in New York. And the rest? I hesitated. There had been rumors, whispers in my research that I'd dismissed as gossip. Connections to old Italian families, business deals that closed too smoothly, competition that mysteriously withdrew. Nothing concrete, nothing proven, but enough smoke to suggest fire. I don't care about the rest, I said firmly. I'm here to do a job. He studied me for a long moment, then moved to the conference table, leaning against it with a casualness that was completely at odds with the tension radiating from him. What if I told you the job has changed? What do you mean? I mean that you, working directly under me, seeing me every day, sitting across from me in meetings. It's going to be complicated. Only if we let it be. You really think we can ignore what happened? I met his gaze steadily, even though my heart was hammering. Yes, because we're both professionals, because I've worked too hard to get here to let one kiss ruin it, and because you're not the kind of man who lets personal feelings interfere with business. Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or challenge. You don't know what kind of man I am, Emily. Then show me. The air between us was electric, charged with everything we weren't saying. I could feel the pull, that same magnetic attraction that had led to the kiss. But I couldn't let it win. Not now. Not when everything I'd worked for was on the line. Professional boundaries, he said finally. Clear lines. Agreed. You'll work with the development team, not directly with me. Margaret will be your primary contact. I nodded, ignoring the small pang of disappointment. This was better. Safer. Good. He straightened, buttoning his suit jacket. Back to business. Back to being the untouchable CEO. Margaret will get you settled. Welcome to Vitale Enterprises, Miss Foster. He moved toward the door, and I thought that was it. Crisis averted. Professional distance established. But he paused at the door, hand on the handle, and looked back at me. The mask slipped just enough for me to see the man underneath. The man who'd kissed me like the world was ending. For the record, he said quietly, I don't regret it. The kiss. Even knowing it was a terrible idea, I don't regret it. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the conference room with my racing heart and the lingering weight of his confession. I sank back into my chair, hands shaking as I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold. Professional boundaries, I told myself. Clear lines. We could do this. We had to. But as I looked out at the Manhattan skyline, at this beautiful, powerful world I just entered, I couldn't shake the feeling that Leonardo Vitale was right. This was going to be a problem. A very, very big problem. 3 weeks. That's how long I'd managed to maintain our careful professional distance. 3 weeks of avoiding eye contact in the hallways, of keeping my voice neutral during the few meetings we both attended, of pretending that my entire body didn't come alive every time he was near. 3 weeks of lying to myself. The development team was brilliant, the work was challenging, and I was good at it. Better than good. I'd already identified 3 cost-saving measures that had impressed even the most skeptical senior analysts. I was building a reputation, making my mark, but none of it felt real. Because underneath every success, every professional triumph, was the constant awareness of him. Leonardo, Mr. Vitale, the man I'd kissed. The man I couldn't stop thinking about. And the worst part? I could tell he felt it too. It was in the way his gaze would find me across a crowded conference room. The way his jaw would tighten when someone stood too close to me. The way meetings that should have taken 30 minutes stretched to an hour because he kept asking me questions, challenging my analyses, pushing me to defend my positions. It was a game we were both losing. Thursday evening, I was the last one left in the office. Again. I'd made a habit of staying late, partly because I was genuinely invested in my projects, partly because the empty office meant I didn't have to guard my expressions, my reactions. I could just breathe. I was deep in a financial model when I heard the door to the office suite open. I glanced at the clock. 9:30. Security would be making rounds, but the footsteps that approached my desk weren't as security guards. "You're here late." I looked up to find Leonardo standing beside my desk, jacket off, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were entirely too distracting. He looked tired, and frustrated, and dangerously attractive. "So are you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I own the building. I'm allowed. I have a project due. The Riverside Development Analysis." He moved around my desk, looking at my screen. Close. Too close. "I read your preliminary report. And it was good. Very good." He glanced down at me, and I saw something flicker in those dark eyes. "You're exceeding expectations, Emily. That was always the plan." "Was it?" He pulled up a chair, sitting so we were at eye level. "Or was the plan to prove something? To yourself? To me? I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You work harder than anyone here. Stay later. Take on extra projects. You're trying to prove that you deserve to be here despite what happened between us." "Don't I have to?" "No." The single word was fierce. "You earned this position. Your qualifications, your experience, your intelligence. That kiss didn't get you this job, Emily. You did." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. "Then why does it feel like everything I do is under a microscope?" "Because it is." He reached out, then stopped himself, hand falling back to his knee. "But not for the reasons you think. People are watching you because you're talented, because you're making waves, because in 3 weeks, you've accomplished what some analysts take 6 months to do. Or because they know something happened between us. No one knows." His voice was certain. "I've made sure of that. I studied him, this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly protective man. Why? Why what? Why protect me? You could have fired me, transferred me, made this whole situation disappear." His jaw clenched. "Is that what you think I should have done?" "I think it would have been easier." "Easier isn't always right." He stood abruptly, moving to the window. The Manhattan skyline glittered behind him, 1,000 lights in the darkness. "You want to know the truth, Emily? I've tried. I've tried to forget that kiss. Tried to see you as just another employee. Tried to convince myself that what I felt was just attraction, just chemistry, just something that would fade." My heart was pounding. "And?" He turned to face me, and the look in his eyes stole my breath. "And I can't. I look at you and I see the woman who challenged me at that wedding, who kissed me back like the world was ending, who walked into my office and didn't flinch, didn't back down, didn't let me intimidate her for even a second. Leonardo," I whispered. "I know this is wrong. I know all the reasons we shouldn't do this. Power dynamics, professional ethics. The fact that my world is complicated and dangerous, and nothing like yours." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "But I also know that I've never wanted anything the way I want you. And that terrifies me more than any business deal, any rival, any threat I've ever faced. I stood, my legs shaky. We were inches apart now, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, could smell that cedar cologne that haunted my dreams. "This is a terrible idea," I said, echoing my words from the wedding. "The worst," he agreed. "It could ruin everything. My career, your reputation, this whole careful balance we've created." "I know." "We should walk away, maintain those professional boundaries, keep pretending we don't feel this." "We should." His hand came up, cupping my face the same way he had that night. "Are we going to?" I should have said yes, should have stepped back, gathered my things and left, should have protected myself, my job, my future. Instead, I rose on my toes and kissed him. This kiss was different than the first. That one had been impulse and champagne, and the recklessness of strangers. This one was choice. Deliberate, conscious choice despite knowing all the risks. And it was even better. Leonardo made a sound low in his throat, his arms coming around me, pulling me flush against him. I melted into his strength, into the heat of him, into the feeling of finally giving in to what we'd both been fighting. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "This changes everything," I said. "I know." His forehead rested against mine. "Can you handle that? Can you?" He smiled, that devastating smile that transformed his whole face. "Emily Foster. I run a multi-billion-dollar company and navigate politics that would make most people's heads spin. But you're the most complicated, challenging, absolutely terrifying thing I've ever taken on." "Good." I kissed him again, softer this time. "Because I don't plan on making this easy for you. I wouldn't want you to." We stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, in the quiet of the empty office, in the enormity of what we were choosing. "What happens now?" I asked finally. "Now? We figure it out. Together." He pulled back enough to look at me properly. "Full disclosure. I need you to understand what you're getting into. My family, my business. It's not all legal contracts and development deals. There are parts of my life that are complicated." "I know. Do you?" His expression was serious. "Because once we do this, once we cross this line completely, I won't let you go easily. I'm not a man who does anything halfway, Emily. Especially not this." I should have been scared. Any rational person would have been. But looking into his eyes, seeing the fierce protectiveness there, the barely leashed intensity, I felt something else entirely. Safe, seen, chosen. "Then don't," I said simply. "Don't let me go. Don't do this halfway, because I'm all in, Leonardo. Complicated life, dangerous world, whatever comes. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." The smile he gave me then was pure happiness, unguarded and real in a way I suspected few people ever saw. "Then we do this right. No more pretending in the office, no more careful distance. We'll be professional when we need to be, but I'm not hiding what you mean to me. People will talk. Let them." He kissed my forehead, gentle and possessive at once. "You earned your place here. Anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to me. My fierce protector. Always." His arms tightened around me. "Fair warning, though. I'm going to be hell to work with now." "Why's that?" "Because every meeting, every presentation, every moment I have to maintain professional distance is going to kill me. Knowing I can have this, have you, and having to wait until we're alone." I laughed, the sound surprising me with its joy. "We'll manage." "Will we?" "We have to. Because I'm not giving up my career, and you're not giving up your company. So we figure out how to have both." "Both," he repeated, like he was testing the word. I like the sound of that. We stayed in the office for another hour, talking about logistics and boundaries and how to navigate this impossible situation we'd created. And when we finally left, walking out together into the cool New York night, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Leonardo Vitale was dangerous and complicated and came with more warning labels than a prescription medication. But he was also honest and protective and looked at me like I was the most valuable thing in his world. And maybe that wedding kiss hadn't been a mistake after all. Maybe it had been fate giving us both exactly what we needed, right when we were brave enough to reach for it. As we stood on the sidewalk, his hand finding mine, the city lights glittering around us, I made myself a promise. Whatever came next, whatever challenges we faced, whatever complications arose from mixing business with pleasure and professional boundaries with personal desire, I wouldn't regret this choice. Because some risks are worth taking. And Leonardo Vitale, he was worth everything. So that's how a single kiss at a wedding changed my entire life. One impulsive moment led me to the most complicated, challenging, and incredible relationship I've ever experienced. But here's what I want to know from you. Do you think I made the right choice? Would you have risked your career for a connection like that? Or would you have walked away to protect what you'd worked so hard to build? And what about Leonardo? He could have made everything easier by keeping his distance, by maintaining those professional boundaries. But instead, he chose honesty. He chose to fight for what we had. Do you think that was brave or reckless? I've learned something through all of this. Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. Sometimes the person who seems the most dangerous is actually the one who makes you feel the safest. And sometimes, just sometimes, that voice in your head telling you to play it safe is the one you need to ignore. But relationships like ours don't come with guarantees. They come with challenges, with complications, with moments where you have to choose between what's easy and what's right. And every single day, Leonardo and I are making that choice. Here's my question for you. Have you ever met someone who made you want to throw all your carefully laid plans out the window? Someone who terrified you and excited you in equal measure? And if you have, what did you do about it? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and tell me about a time you took a risk on someone or something that seemed impossible. Did it work out? Would you do it again? Your experiences might just help someone else find the courage to take their own leap. And if this story resonated with you, if Emily and Leonardo's journey touched something in your heart, I need your help. Hit that like button right now. Let's reach 200 likes together, because there are more stories like this waiting to be told. Stories about real people facing impossible choices, taking incredible risks, and finding love in the most unexpected places. Your support means everything. Every like, every comment, every share helps me continue bringing you these stories. So if you've made it this far, if you've invested in this journey with me, please take just 1 second to hit that like button. Let's build this community together. What do you think happens next for Leonardo and me? Do you think we can really make this work, balancing a complicated relationship with demanding careers? Or are we headed for disaster? Tell me in the comments. Challenge me. Argue with me. Share your perspective. Because that's what makes this community special. We're not just passive observers. We're participants in these stories, learning from each other, growing together. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about this story. Now, are you going to hit that like button, or are you going to make me wait?